How's it going, everyone? DD Mancula here. So today I'm going to be going over a build of mine for Warlord that focuses more around the basic units. I found this build to be very successful early game. It has its pros and its cons. So let's get into it, and I'm going to show you and start out with the skill tree and what I put my points into. So before I get into the skill tree, I'm going to go over the units. We have Henrietta, Deadite Elite, and Basic Deadite. Warlord has some pretty basic, simplistic units, in my opinion. The basic unit has a puke ability, does projectile vomit damage. There are upgrades in your skill tree for that. Farewell to arms, he can rip off his arms using a melee weapon, and he can dodge like a survivor. The elite unit has a smash ability. He charges up, starts running. You activate it again, he slams the ground. Anyone around him gets hit. He also can do a large AoE swing with his arms that covers a huge radius and does good damage. Henrietta has a belly flop ability where she hits the ground and anyone around her receives damage. This is a good ability to use if you're getting rushed and everyone's all hitting you and spamming you. It does a good, okay damage, not amazing damage. So I wouldn't use this unless you're getting rushed by multiple. She has a gas leak ability. She leaves a trail of toxic fumes behind her. I find this ability to be very good if you're also getting rushed because it also interrupts people's attacks. Kind of buys you a little bit of breathing. A Granny Hug, it's a simple stun grab. She grabs the survivor and basically does damage to them all. Grabbing them. Could be broken free out of it, but it's good at, locking down survivors that you're chasing, or you just want to do extra damage. So let's get into the skills. So the unique ability for Warlord, when you activate it, the aura around you, all the units around you have their health, damage, and attack frequency. You get Warlord maxed out, you can do up to 55% more damage, have 55% more health, and a 40% attack frequency, which is really good if you have a lot of units clustered around each other. So, starting with the skill tree, Warlord has a few skill tree upgrades that can be used for blood splatter. In my opinion, I don't find blood splatter that effective other than this one here, which increases the fear level of affected survivors by blood splatter. That's not a bad perk, not a bad thing to upgrade into considering there's always blood splatter going on, so increasing the fear survivor. Some of the best talent skill tree upgrades for Warlord are these four here, which is all focused around puke. This entire build is going to be mainly focused around basic unit with a little bit into Henrietta, the boss, but it's mostly going to be focused on basic unit. So this first one here, survivors hit by the puke are temporarily unable to sprint, and this one, survivors hit by the puke are unable to dodge. This lasts for 5 seconds both. Every time you puke on a survivor, they can't run and they can't dodge. You puke on a survivor, you want to rush them as fast as you can and do much damage before they can start dodging and running again. It allows you to get a few free hits. Projectile vomit and acid reflux. This one increases the range by 35%. This is needed in my opinion. You don't really need to max this one out, but I still recommend it because puke is still very good on these units and it really helps you out in one situations. Another thing is when you puke on someone, it also interrupts their attack enemy. Next thing I recommend putting points into is either one of these two. Increase Henrietta's stun recovery speed by 40% or the duration of gas leak. I put him in the gas leak for 35% increased duration. You can do either. Gas leak can interrupt attacks and do damage to people, and stun is just good for locking down single survivors. This next upgrade, boss units are more resistance to balance bar damage to 35%. I highly recommend always putting balance bar resistance on units you're going to be playing a lot. Balance bar is a huge counter. Increase the maximum health by basic units for 35%. It's a good one. Your basic units to be tanky. Combine that 35% with this in here, you're going to be getting an extra 90, I think it's 90%, 35, 55, 65, 5. Yeah, 90% extra health for your basic units. That's pretty good. That's really good if you have this active on and this upgrade. This increases the balance bar for basic units by 35%. Another thing that's really good because basic units are your bread and butter for this build. Increases the maximum health of boss units by 35%. Makes Henrietta a bit tankier and a bit harder to kill. Increases damage by basic units by 35%. That's also a good one. So you're going to have 90% increased health and 90% increased damage on basic units if they're receiving this. These two are some of the best, in my opinion, skill tree upgrades for Warlord. This one, Demonic Revival. After a period of receiving no damage, evil units begin to regenerate health. 5% per second. So this is good if someone decides to attack a unit and starts running. I don't know the exact period, but after a certain amount of time, they'll start regenerating health. It's also good if units receive AoE damage. After not receiving damage, they just start regenerating health. Over and all, this skill tree upgrade pays off in the long run in the game. Pain Parasite. Evil units gain health from damage they deal by melee attack. Basically life stealing. So all your units can get 10% life steal. And this also still procs if you're possessing a unit, which is a very, very good thing to have. Next one, I put 1 point into heavy damage for your boss. Increases damage for Henrietta by 10%. I only put 1 point because 1 point does 10%. 2 points only gives an extra 5%, so not worth it to me. Test of Time. Increase the duration of objective events for survivors while the demon player is inside the objective items. 20%, which is pretty good. You don't have to put 2 in there, but at least put 1. So making that little extra time on the timer can really help out in some clutch situations at the map or dagger. I also put some points into reducing the energy cost of basic portals, considering your whole build is revolving around basic units. If you have extra points, put them into anything that's... Another one I put a point into was reducing the cooldown place between the portals, so 5%. You can spec your points, extra points in here as you see fit or anywhere else, but I recommend putting them into this line. This bottom row is pretty useless, in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's useless. I would say there's other skill points in this tree that are much more beneficial. This top row and a lot in this row focuses more on elite units, and elite units are not what you want to build out of, because elite units, in my opinion, have bad hit registration. They attack slow. They don't do as much damage output as basic units can. So this build mostly focuses on basic units that had aggressive playstyle. With having such a buffed basic unit, you can really jump on survivors early game if they're by themselves, take advantage of it, and deal a lot of damage, and more than likely down them. You can usually win most 1v1s aren't running this build. But it does have some disadvantages, though, survivors are. I'm going to go ahead and show you some gameplay of using this build, and I'm going to show you the pros and cons. What I do for this build and how I make it work. Now, one of the things that countered this build really hard is if people group up together. Because if people are grouping up together, your basic units doesn't have the HP or balance bar damage resistance to 1v4. So in this situation, I noticed they're grouping up, but I noticed Henry the Red was in this building by himself. Not super far off, but he's in a building by himself. So I take advantage of that. I possess a unit, and I just start outputting some damage to him. He pops his ability where he's invincible, so I immediately run to the Kelly out back. I start harassing her, putting some damage into her, and as you can see, it's hitting for 122 at least per hit. Puke on her, she can no longer dodge, I just start outputting damage. So when you're in situations where the enemy team is sticking really well together, at that point it becomes a game of attrition, and you want to basically harass them as much as possible, deal as much damage as possible, to slow them down, get them to use their heal. You just leave them, allow them to stick together and save their heals, you're going to lose when it comes to map and deck. So there's not much you can do early game when these people are sticking hard together, other than just keep raising your threat level and looking for opportunities. I noticed the Kelly ran back into this building by herself, so I'm taking advantage of this. I'm looking for an opening. I see her running around. I take advantage here by placing a portal down, immediately possessing it, and start hitting her. Look at that. Went over 100 damage per hit. I take her down, and then I start camping this body, getting ready. So even if someone is close to the team, even if they're in the next building, take advantage of that. Spawn a unit in, possess a unit, and do as much damage as they can. Sure, they may jump through windows, but you may down them. You may actually do a lot of damage to them, make them use healing. Don't think they have to be across the map for you to attack them. just immediately take advantage of someone just even the next building over. Because trust me, some people can get cocky in this game. I get cocky at times. But it's a very, very strong strat to hit people while they're solo. People do not have the damage output early game to win 1v1. It's this Warlord basic unit. So I'm going to go into another video and show you some. So in this video here, I'm basically watching the survivors waiting for an opportunity to strike. I noticed the Annie and the Kelly are over here by themselves. So I decided to spawn in a basic unit portal. I'm only threat level 3, but I did put a point into it. I begin to start being very aggressive on the Kelly. I do about a 4-hit combo on her, and I just keep pummeling her. And as you can see, the damage I'm doing, 111 per hit. So that's some pretty good starter damage. It has a lot more basic damage compared to units like Puppeteer. Not that far from the Necromancer's basic unit, but Necromancer has a slower attack speed, while the Warlord's basic units have a much higher attack speed. So I'm taking advantage of these two off on their own, trying to kill them. The other two Ashes see this going on, they're coming up to help them. But even before they have a chance to get up there, I down both of them. It's only been 2.5 minutes into the game, not even 3 minutes. So Warlord, you need to take advantage of people split early game or at all, and just try to do as much damage or down them. And now there's only 2 left, so I proceed to start doing damage to the Ash. I hit him with my puke right there. He's unable to dodge or run. And one thing I want to point out, if you noticed, this unit I have has a melee weapon. So melee weapons, especially like an axe on these basic units, the damage is insane. You output a lot more damage, and you are very deadly. People should not underestimate this build. You will win literally almost any 1v1 in this game. Unless it's, for example, a Warrior Ash, then you may have some trouble. Or someone with a high balance bar. But as you can see, the output is really, really high. So, not even 4 minutes into the game, 2 of them are bleeding out, 1 soul's being carried. She tries going for the save. I'm not going to let that happen. Basically here, they get wiped. So don't ever underestimate the strength of Warlord's early game. Let's go into the next gameplay. So in this video, this was another team. They were sticking close to each other most of the time. I caught the Amanda off by herself down here, so I began preparing to try to do as much damage as I could before the team came over. I dropped some traps over here, and I waited for a unit to spawn to test them. The unit spawns in, I trap her down here, and I begin to take her out. This unit had a melee damage, and it was hitting for about 160 plus per hit. Really good. So you'll notice there, one counter to this is Hunter Ash, because Hunter Ash can dispel basic unit. So it is kind of frustrating when you keep dispelling basic units, and they're constantly getting kicked out of. Before I get into that, I want to explain that real quick. Saw what happened right there. So right here, you will see that when I puke on the Ash, it interrupts his attack. That's one thing puke does. It cancels any attacks happening on you, and he starts covering his face. Take advantage of that. Back to what I was saying about Hunter Ash. If you're playing against a Hunter Ash who's constantly dispelling your basic units, one way you can counter that is to make sure you have a bunch of energy on you. Spawn a portal of about 3 basic units if you have it maxed out. The first one you possess, he's going to dispel, but as soon as he dispels that, immediately possess the next one, and it's going to be on cooldown. If you don't have high enough energy, you're not going to have you're not going to be able to possess the next unit. But as you see here, I'm basically harassing them, whittling them down, playing a game of attrition here, to speak. So you always want to be constantly possessing basic units and just dealing as much damage as you can. Even if it's a little damage, that little amount of damage is going to force them to use their heals, right? Until they're basically all out of it. Or they decide to go into a map or dagger objective, complete it, they're not going to have any heals. So as you see here, they're all pretty low. 2 are bleeding out. Just doing a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure at this point. I don't want them to get a footing on me. So I just keep hitting them over and over, making the Cheryl use up all her heals. I got 3 down at this point, and this was pretty much of a... It took me another 5 minutes to kill this Ash. He had a stamina build going on. Dodging pretty well. But yeah, you want to put as much pressure as possible if they are grouping together. One thing, if they're grouping together, you may not be able to have a chance to defeat them until endgame. And I'm gonna show you another video, one more clip of how I defeated these people. So this is a game I was playing here where the enemy survivors were sticking really well together, playing really smart. They weren't splitting up at all, giving me any breathing room. But so in this situation, I had to take advantage of the game of attrition by slowly whittling down their heals as much as they could, because I knew it would reach the Dark Ones, and my only chance would be to take advantage of the Dark Ones dealing damage, the massive wave spawning, them focused on dispelling the Dark Ones, and try to kill them. So one thing I did is I activated my unique ability right before I possess, so all my units around me would start receiving the buff. I start focusing the Cheryl down, usually want to focus support down to deal damage, stop them from healing their team. As you saw here, they were focusing whoever I possessed really quickly, which was very, very smart. Possessed the Cheryl, started doing damage to the people around me. Little fun fact, the longer you possess a survivor, the more damage. And as they're trying to kill me, they take damage from the units and the Dark One. The opportunity I was looking for to defeat this enemy. I keep applying pressure. Unfortunately, they're not able to get the revives off. All the units and the Dark Ones made it very difficult. So when you have teams like this who stick together very well, and you are unable to take advantage of any splits or situations, you want to focus on raising your threat level as possible through traps and raising their fear, and rely on the map pages, but most of all the Dark Ones. The Dark Ones before they get dispelled. Once they get dispelled, you're not going to have those extra shots ringing out, hitting them. So this is my Warlord build. If you guys have any questions about it, want to see any other type of builds, let me know. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.